Going over today what to expect if you have hired me as your lawyer, what to expect for your friends and your family members at a bond hearing. So, a bond hearing is a hearing to determine whether or not the person who's accused of a crime will get out of jail. And sometimes I represent people at bond hearings, at this stage is a very important stage in a criminal case because it is the deciding factor on whether or not a person stays in jail or can be released to go home with their family and loved ones. So, first of all, what family and friends need to know is that you need to stay on a different side of the courtroom than if there's a victim. The victim will be on the opposite side, or the alleged victim will be on the opposite side of the courtroom. You do not need to make comments, make eye contact. You don't even need to be around the alleged victim during the bond hearing. When entering and exiting a bond courtroom and there's an alleged victim, the defendant's family needs to let the victim's family come in and out first and give the alleged victim all the space and time that they need to convey their thoughts to the judge. Either they may talk themselves during the bond hearing, or they may not be present and they may have a victim's advocate talk on their behalf, or maybe the victim's advocate talks on their behalf and they're also there. There are many different combinations of how an alleged victim's voice can be heard. Voice means, like what their thoughts that they'd like to be conveyed. Almost all of my bond hearings are conducted via video conferencing, which means my client is at the jail, and which is in a different location sometimes, most of the time, than the actual bond courtroom. So if you are up for bond, you will have signed something that says you consent to video conferencing. That means that you'll be able to hopefully see and hear the judge and maybe see and hear your attorney. But you definitely should be able to hear the judge. And you don't need to talk about anything that has to do with the case during this time. You need to respond to the judge with respect, yes ma'am, or no sir, yes your honor, no your honor. And you need to speak clearly and in a way that is very easy to understand for the judge. It can be difficult to hear. It seems to be very loud in the places where my clients are during bond hearings, and it may not be that way at all in a courtroom. I will be presenting certain information to the judge. Usually during bond hearings, I will be prepared to tell the judge why my client is not a flight risk and why my client is not a danger to the community. Those are the two things, and really the only two things that a bond judge wants to hear about during a bond hearing. It is not the time to litigate the case. It's not the time to make defenses. It is a very narrow scope hearing. So we want to stick to the point. So some of the things that I will be presenting as parts of a bond hearing would be my client's age, their level of education, their family support in the community, whether or not they are employed. I usually give a pretty good employment history. If they have stable employment when they get out, that's a good indication. How long have they been at their current employer? Those things can be important during a bond hearing. Their place of birth. Do they have ties to the community? Do they own a home here? Do they rent a home here? Do they have children here? Are they from the state, or were they picked up in the interstate, or is there some other situation? Are their kids going to school here? Have they ever missed a court date is a very important part of my presentations at bond hearings. A lot of times I get asked from family members, can family members speak? And, a lot of it depends on the judge, but I usually have in my presentation which family members are present, their relationship to my client, and whatever they want to relay, I usually relay it for them, just to keep things brief. It is very important to observe the courtroom decorum, and that is a fancy term for people need to be respectful of the court's rules during a bond hearing, particularly if the judge is on the bench. They need not talk during a bond hearing or whisper amongst themselves. They need not roll their eyes or sigh or do anything that would reflect badly upon them in adhering to the rules of courtroom decorum. The judge wants to have a certain level of respect, and certain things may be said by the victim's advocate or by the other side or the alleged victim that you as family members think to be false or you disagree with very strongly. And a bond hearing is not the time to act out or show emotion. I mean, it's just not appropriate. And whenever I go to a bond hearing, I like to be prepared. I also like for my clients to be prepared, and I also like for my clients' friends and family to be prepared. And just knowing what to expect seems to help people dramatically. So I hope that this video has given you some information about bond hearings. Sometimes I submit written affidavits or sworn statements about character evidence, but not really character evidence as much as just it would show community support, but I prefer to have folks there in person. For more information, give me a call at 843-607-9800.